Hello and welcome to Daily Work Remote Strategies. Today's session is on how to tell a story to your customer or in an interview situation. And I call these SARI stories, S-A-R-I. And the way that I first heard about them is you'll be sorry if you don't use a SARI story. So there you go. My name is Senia Maymin. I run Silicon Valley Change Executive Coaching. We have lots of wonderful coaches. They do interactive virtual workshops. They do coaching. But today, this is about you, and this is about how you tell stories and about how you get your point across in a way that really sticks in people's heads. Once upon a time, I realized in doing coaching and in running workshops that there are two parts of life. Now, let me know if you feel the same way. And the two parts are, we all do work. We all get out there and we do our work. We work with teams, we work individually, we do our work. So there's doing the work. And there's talking about the work, letting people know the work that we've done. And in my observation, somewhat recently over the past 10, 15 years, lots of people can be good at doing their work and managing teams and managing their own work and getting work done and getting superb work done. Not as many people are as good about talking about the work that they've done. So today's session is all about why aren't we as good at it? What can we do to get better at it? The big why for today is to take everything that you do in work, everything that you do that's amazing in work, and be able to talk about it in a humble and truthful and powerful way. So this is why we come to these SARI stories. In addition to having at the end of today SARI stories, this format, you will have at least one SARI story that you're walking away from here with. So where can you use these kinds of SARI stories? You can use them in interviews. You can use them in conversations about getting promoted. This is about describing your work and what you've done. You can also use them with customers. You can talk about your successes. All right, we're gonna get right into this, right into what is a SARI story. Let me define a SARI story first, and then I'll give you a quick example, and then we'll just launch into experiment about these SARI stories. What is a SARI story? I'm taking a Post-it off my computer. A SARI story, so all of those letters, S-A-R-I, is about the situation, the action, the result, and the interesting thing. What is this? A SARI story is a story that has a setup. It has a situation. So it has the drama before anything ever happens. Then it has the action. That's the step that you took or somebody took. Then it has the result. What was really the measurable result? And finally, it has the interesting thing, which you'll see, they can be quirky, but they can lead to future and further SARI stories. Let me start with an example. Suppose you ask me, what do you do for work? Senia, what do you do? In the past, I would have told you I'm an executive coach and I run a team of dozens and dozens of coaches. They're amazing, they're incredible, that's what I do. That is probably where the conversation would have ended. If you and I that's great, okay, good, but that's a fact. So what I've told you is actually, if we're looking at this SARI model, if you had asked me, Senia, what do you do? I only told you the action part. We are executive coaches. We do executive coaching. I didn't tell kind of company. So let me give you the exact same answer, taking just a couple of sentences longer, but the same answer. So you and I meet for the first time ever at a cocktail party, and we're both standing around a little uncomfortably with our drink and our cracker with cheese on it. So we're standing around, not sure when this event is going to get started. And we start talking. Now, first of all, it'll probably be just silly and fun and enjoyable to talk anyway. But suppose you ask me, hey, Senia, what do you do? This is what I now say. I say, you know how in organizations, there are some times that organizations send people in for some training, like how to be a better communicator, how to give feedback, how to get feedback, those kinds of trainings. You'll say, yeah, I know, either I've gone to these or I've run these. Well, what I've heard from people who are in HR and in learning and development is that the problem with these kinds of situations is that people go, they're engaged, they're totally on for an hour or even a couple of days, but then they step away from this kind of event and they sort of, that was a good event, but they get back to their work and they're completely busy with it. What I do is I run a company of executive coaches, and we come in to a company, a big company, usually after one of these trainings, so that we can provide coaching in a step-by-step way to people who have gone through training. So before, it used to be the situation that after people had training, the common thread is people lose that information either 30 minutes after the training or when they're 30 feet outside the door of the training room. And in working with an executive coach, especially a team like ours who knows a lot of the content of these kinds of trainings, you get these repetitive, consistent reminders. So really what we do is we put the content that you've learned into context. And that's what we do. We take content, we put it into context, you're back at your desk, you're working, but every once in a while you have a phone call or a Zoom session with a coach and you get back on track. You talk again about how to have effective conversations, effective meetings, because you have that accountability partner. And in doing this, we've been able to give, for people who are going through coaching, when they tell us this is our biggest burning issue, they get a 63% improvement by their own measurement. They get a 63% improvement on their biggest burning issue. So that's what we do. So what have I done? I have walked you through the situation, which is training stinks. It's usually lousy. It's great in the moment, but then all of that work and all of that effort gets forgotten. What's the action? We come in and we do coaching, and it's repetitive, it's consistent. You can talk about what's going on at your work. That's the context. What's the result? Well, I told you the 63% number, but I also tried to give you a result that this really helps people in getting something habitual and routine. And what's the interesting thing? I didn't add an interesting thing, but if I had wanted to, I could have added something like, and after going through this, people will often say, hey, this is like having a superpower, or this is having like a person on my shoulder whom other people don't even know about, this executive coaching. So I could have given you a sense of what some people say. What's the difference? So give me a couple of comments in the comment section. What do you hear as the difference between, Senia, what do you do? I'm an executive coach. I run an executive coaching company. And Senia, what do you do? Well, you know that there's this situation with training, and here's what we do, and we come in, and here's the result we have. What do you hear as the difference between those two? So give me a couple of comments in the comment section. I'll take a sip of water while you do. All right, so what are you all saying? You're saying it can enhance my impact and it can show the value to my clients. Yes, it can. I really like that comment. Before I go on to the other comments, I really like that comment. It can add value to my clients. So I'm speaking about this in terms of clients. And actually a lot of you on the call, you've either worked with Silicon Valley Change executive coaching, or you've seen me do a workshop, or I've been your coach. So you know what we do in coaching, but you're still seeing in how I describe it that there's value. And I love that, because that value can be in two different ways. Value to a potential client, but also value to someone who's more senior than you. And we'll get into this in a moment. So if you're having a promotion conversation, or a conversation with a mentor, or someone who's a couple of levels above you, you can tell SARI stories. They're very real, and they're also memorable. We all know this, so I'm not going to get into the science of storytelling, but we know that stories stick in our brains. I met Senia, and she's an executive coach. Like, you're not going to tell someone when you come home from that cocktail party. But I met Senia, and one of the silly things she says is when her coaches are coaching people, one of the first comments that they get back as feedback is people say, oh, it's really good to have a smart person to talk to. And when this person that I just met, Senia, told me this, she was sort of skeptical about it. All right, this company has paid thousands and thousands of people to get thousands and thousands of dollars to get somebody coached, and one of the biggest comments they say at the end is, it's good to have a smart person to talk to. But then Senia realized, oh, okay, what they really mean is it's really good to have a person on my side to whom I can be accountable, who knows strategy but also knows people issues, and who can talk to me about my habits. So all of these different things. That's what people mean when you dig into that smart comment. Otherwise, smart is sort of a funny comment to get at the end of a really, really long, in-depth engagement. So stories are catchy, they're tellable. What else are you saying? It talks about tangible impact. Yes, and you can talk about that. So now we're going to move on to interview stories or promotion stories. Yes, it can talk about tangible impact and what you've done. And it sounds impactful. Thank you so much for those comments. Okay, so those are stories. I've talked about it specifically in the context of a client, but let's talk about it in the context of work. So you have, wherever you work, you likely have one-on-ones with your manager, whether you have them weekly, bi-weekly, every day as a quick check-in. And you're always going through the projects that you're working on, and you're updating your manager. Everybody does this. We all do this. When you're doing that, what is a way to highlight something that you're especially excited about, an achievement of yours? So let me make this interactive. I'm not going to read your name, but I'll read off the comments. When I work with somebody on their SARI stories, this is the process I use. So I don't say, tell me about your S. Tell me about the situation, because nobody knows the situation. But I will say, tell me about your results. So I will say, look at everything that you accomplish in work. What are the biggest things that you do? And tell me about those places in which you have strong results. And by results, so I'm going to get very nitty gritty here because I'm talking about the work context and promotion discussions and career discussions. For a result, please tell me about a situation where you've either added to the profit of the company or organization, or you've improved the productivity. So only tell me about those results where it's been an amazing, amazing result on profit or productivity. What do I mean? Wherever you work, in profit, have you increased revenue through what you've done? Have you increased the amount of money coming in, whether you're a salesperson or something that you did led to more sales? Or have you decreased expenses, the other side of profit? So have you increased revenue or decreased expenses? Or have you improved productivity? A lot of the things that we work on in business, they are about improving effectiveness, efficiency, productivity. Have you improved that? So take a moment and tell me, all of us have these. Tell me the result part of a story, and tell me sort of your biggest result, the one you're most proud of. And you can tell it to me as numbers. This happened and we improved this by this amount. Or you can tell me this is what happened profit-wise or productivity-wise. So give me some things that we can all work with. I won't say your name, but I'll read off what kinds of results we're talking about. I'll start with this one, but keep them coming. This person says, I run a remote workers group that increases bonding with our remote employees, presumably increasing retention of remote workers and creating community. Great. So result, increasing retention of remote workers. We all know that's a big, not only buzzword, but a big worry, turnover of employees and also of remote workers. Result, increasing the retention of remote workers. And this might be in the results section, or it might be in the interesting thing, in creating community as you do that. Great, very clear. This is somebody who is, I'm just going to read the result, not the whole explanation. Greater reach to the audience and lower cost. So that's sort of a double whammy on profit. If you're having a greater reach, likely you could be improving the income, the revenue, but you also have a lower cost. Great. So a couple of examples, keep them coming. So I really want to hear, I'd actually like to hear about a productivity example, because not all of us work in businesses where we can say, I increased revenue or I decreased costs. So I'd like to hear about something where you increase productivity by certain minutes or certain amount. Okay, so keep those coming. That's where you start. So if you're at home, as we all are, and you're thinking about how to tell one of these stories, literally this afternoon or tomorrow, start with the result. So start with, what is the result? What's something that I did in the past week? I'm about to update my boss. What's something that I did in the past week? That's a cool result that they'd be interested in. And then, and here's the problem with how all of us think. We've already done the work. We've already managed the work. We've done this work. And so we think, okay, great, I'm going to tell the boss the result. Maybe I'll tell the result and tell the action that I took to get to the result. So let me read off a couple of more examples, and then I'll tell you what you should do instead of going straight for a result or straight for action and result. So here are a couple. I'm just scanning them to get to. Okay, aligning ourselves on a new process which would make all teams more productive. And there's an interesting aspect that came out that's needed in the long term. Awesome. You already have an I sort of in the back of your head. And I'll read one more. Manage the strategic initiative. And this is it. This is what I'm talking about. Delivered successfully to the market on time. And the comment this person gets is they wouldn't have delivered it on time without this person being part of it. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So profit or productivity. So you walk into your manager on a Zoom call, let's say this afternoon or tomorrow, and you want to tell them the result or the action. I would like to tell you, let's all take a breath in a sense. Let's not jump into action and result. Let's jump into situation. What is the situation? The situation, whatever show you're watching on Netflix or anywhere else, the situation, that's that preview they give you at the beginning of the show. That's the preview of what happened in the past week's episodes. Why? Because they want to bring up that tension again. So you want to set out that situation. If there's no situation, then everything you do is just, it's a little boring to listen to. And I'm not saying about you, I do this too. I do this all the time. I want to make a gross statement here that a lot of times we coaches, we're leading the webinars in something that we have had to work forward and on and improve in our own lives. So the situation, it's the review of what's going on. So you're about to tell, let's look at this last example. I've managed a strategic initiative and I delivered successfully to market on time. When you are speaking to your boss, let's say this afternoon, I suggest that you start with, here's the problem that we were facing. Here's what we had tried. Here's what I did. That takes less than a minute. It might even take less than 30 seconds, but bring back that bad stuff. What was going on before you took the helm and why? I really want to make a sort of a back up a little bit. This is not about manipulating your listener, because it can sound like, oh, you want to say everything that's bad and then come in and say how you saved the day. Yes, you do want to say that, but it's not because you're manipulating the discussion. It's because you want to give that context. You've been at this project, maybe even 24/7 for the past week. Let's say not 24/7. I want to make sure you're getting some sleep and hopefully some outside time, but you're on this project intensely. And if you just say, here's what happened, that intensity isn't there. So if you're not even saying, here are the things we tried, here's the problem, here was the obstacle. These are all ways of saying this was the situation. This was an obstacle we faced since the last week until now. Here's the action I took. Here's the action I took with my team. All right, so let me give a couple of comments about each of these. First thing, start with the R. So start with, I keep putting this right in front of my face. Start with the R. So start thinking about, how did I improve profit, increase revenue, or decrease expenses? How did I improve profit, or did I improve productivity? Then for each of these, all right, so situation. The situation is the obstacle, the bad thing, the thing since last week, the problem. Those are all the situation. And as you're saying this, it is completely fine to use those sentences. So if you're speaking with a colleague, with a mentor, with anybody, the situation was, that's a normal English sentence. The situation was, the obstacle was, the problem was. The action I took. Now with the A, this is what I'd like you to remember. It needs to be the action I took. Why? Not because we're all megalomaniacs here and it's all about me. Even if you're running a team, you can be humble, and humility is an amazing quality, and we can do a whole session on humility. A few times I've had a coaching client, a leader who had humility in their top 1 or in their top 5. People love that leader. They love following that leader. When you're talking about what you've accomplished, talk about I. The action I took. I got the team together to do this. I asked the team to do this. I had the team. I did this. I went off and did this. So that it's an I. And I really want to emphasize that, because in some companies also there's a little bit of a global decision making, but then it's not really clear, what did you contribute? Who were you in this situation? So that's the I, and the I in the A. Okay, that's weird, I know, but talking about the action with an I. The result, so if you're preparing any part of your SARI story, prepare the number. I prepared the 63% when I spoke with you. I prepare whatever that number is. The other things you've got, you know the situation, you know the actions you took. Prepare very clearly what that number or that result is. And then the interesting thing, some of the best interesting things that I know are things that take it into a different direction. So I'm going to give you 2 examples, and then I'll wrap up with sort of an ending about this and then open it up for your questions. So here are 2 examples of interesting things. One, all right, so this one's a personal favorite because it's such a different, interesting thing. I could tell this story as a success of one VP whom I was coaching, but this person, this leader, could also tell this story, and hopefully has been telling the story, because it's changes that he made on his own. So this was a vice president, and the situation was that there were some communication issues, and some of his colleagues and direct reports weren't liking his, I wouldn't quite say temper, but his mode of handling conflict. So there were some communication issues that weren't great, and he recognized it, and he felt that he didn't have enough patience for certain situations. The actions I took together with him, the frameworks that I showed him, were frameworks about calming our emotional thinking in the moment. So they were all about stepping back. The result that happened is he changed his communication ways. In a company-wide survey, he got huge results. So just amazing results, more than I could have anticipated, on how he's a listener, he really brings people in, he's inclusive. And the interesting thing is, in the course of our working together, we worked on small changes. So rather than how do you change your communication, it was how do you become calm by getting enough sleep? How do you become calm by getting enough exercise? How do you become calm by actually introducing meditation into your life? So the interesting thing is, at the very end of our coaching, he said to me, Senia, I've lost 30 pounds over our work together. I'm eating much healthily. I'm meditating almost every day. And I wear my watch on my left hand. And I said, what? We had worked on this before, but for him, it was a major accomplishment. And I think that's a really fun, interesting thing. So I actually don't remember whether it was left or right. He had worn it all the time on one hand. And as part of trying to do small changes, he switched it to the other hand so that he would have a different habit. So there you have it, the situation, the action he and I took together, small steps, and about calm and patience that led to things that he knew how to do. Thank you so much. I'm getting a few comments of that works for you, that you like it a lot. Thank you. And then the actions we took, the results, and then this interesting thing. That is the SARI story. The SARI story, as you remember from the beginning, you'll be sorry if you don't use the SARI story. It's a way to prep for a meeting you're having, and it's a way to be comfortable at that meeting. You don't really need notes. Once you know what your SARI story is, you've got it. If you're going in to speak with a client or a promotion type of discussion or literally a job interview, I suggest you have 3 SARI stories ready. 3 SARI stories that show off an amazing result, so an incredible result, and that you can tell very comfortably. And the secret is you can use these SARI stories for any interview question. Tell me about a challenge that you handled. Tell me about a time when something was very much under pressure and you took care of it. Tell me about a time when you led a team. If you have 3 SARI stories ready, you can fill those into those situations. I welcome you to use your SARI stories. I hope you have a lot of fun with them. And it's been really fun being with you and reading your comments here. So thank you. And now we'll do questions. Thank you, and we're going to be doing questions. And I want to remind you that this week we've got a couple of fun seminars for fun webinars for tomorrow and the next day, and then answering your questions on Friday. Okay, questions from you, and keep the questions coming. We've got another 6 minutes or so. Do I have any tips for someone to develop comfort around I through humbleness? Okay, so this is how I'm interpreting that question. I think what you're asking is, if I am humble and I appreciate humility and it's an important value for me, how can I still say things in the I form? If that's wrong, let me know. Yes, okay, great. You're using that I to highlight the accomplishments of you and your team and for your organization. So you have an overarching goal for that I. It's a big direction you're going in. If you're not using I, the whole story can get very vague and very fuzzy. And it's not clear, I'll just use Joe as an example. Did Joe do that work? Or did Joe's colleagues, did Joe's direct reports? Who had the idea? Who initiated this? Who got this done? And this comes back to literally the first thing I said in this mini webinar. It's been frustrating for me to see that a lot of people are doing amazing work, but they're not speaking about it in a way that other people know they're doing this amazing work. So for that reason, I just encourage you to try it. And I know that trying something new can be weird. So speaking with your manager and always being I, when previously you've said we, my team, and so on, that can be strange. So start with someone you know. Start with a colleague. Start with someone in a different department. Start with your mom, your brother, your sister. Just call them and say, hey, I'm practicing talking about actions from an I point of view. I did this. I led the team. I led my 2 direct reports, whatever it is. So I'd say practice it, but do it because it's in the service of talking about your work in a way that people know. And they know what you contributed. I mean, you're here at this organization, wherever you are, because you're contributing. So talk about it. If you totally disagree, I'm open to that. So let me know. Okay, other questions. Oh, somebody said, Senia, what's your second story? My second story, which I left only if it's relevant for you, is about a general manager that I worked with. But I'm also getting a question, where can I use these SARI stories? So I've talked about 2 examples where you can use them: in speaking to clients or to potential clients and talking about what you do, and in speaking with your manager, literally in your weekly one-on-one, so all the time, in speaking with your 2 steps removed above you, so in mentor discussions. And I'll add one more, in speaking to yourself. So this is going to sound weird. We have a bazillion thoughts in our, I think somebody's actually done the calculation, and it's 50,000 thoughts a day that we have. I don't know if they did a calculation or how they tested that. So we have a lot of thoughts. Some of those thoughts are just wrong. So if we're having the thought, I'm a complete failure, that's wrong for every single person on this call. That's just wrong. So not all of our thoughts are true, even if we have them. We could be in a bad mood. We could, like, there are a lot of reasons that that could be working. So you can talk to yourself about this way. You can say, hey, this week or today, these can be short SARI stories. This is the result. What was the situation? Got it. That's the situation. These are the actions I took. This is how I got to the result. Oh, and here's the downstream consequence of that result. So talk to yourself, to your managers, to clients, to try them. The thing with trying a new thing like a SARI story is try it a lot. Just try it so it becomes a tool that you can use. And then the question about, so this will probably be my last comment, and I thank you again for being with us. This week we have Eileen Schaefer, she's on Thursday. We have our questions on, that's about confidence. We have, what do we have tomorrow? You guys got our email this week. Oh, wonderful. We have Omid about emotional regulation. And then on Friday, we have answering your questions. Okay, the second story. This story may be different because it has an I that I think is really cool. I was working with a general manager, and he was working on, this is a company that has products. He was working, they had just acquired a company, and he was working on all of the things that have to do with acquiring a company. That's the cultural, how are they going to do culturally now as a broader team? What projects does everyone need to take off? Where do they need to streamline things and to expand things? So just all of those things with combining teams. That was the challenge. The situation was, it was messy. That's the biggest way to sum up that situation. It was messy. The action we took is we talked about whether the general manager would ask more questions about the acquired team, the current team, what do they feel comfortable with, not comfortable, but rather than coming everything from him, ask a lot of questions. The other action we took is I had been really into bravery at the time and was working on writing a book about bravery. So we did a little bit about bravery and how could this general manager be at his bravest in this time? What would be the bravest thing to do? Sometimes it's having a conversation a little bit earlier. Sometimes it's being more direct, those kinds of things. The result was that he was way ahead of the game. He kept the people engaged, interested. I don't have the statistics that I told you about, but he did this so one statistic is the product got to market faster than it would have, that integrated product from the company that was acquired. And the interesting thing is the method that he used to do this cultural assimilation and to work on projects, that became the norm for this company. And it started getting used like a playbook for other acquisitions that the company was making. People would call this general manager up and say, hey, what were the things you did? What did you do? What did you do? So it became like a playbook down the road. And that is our concluding SARI story. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I look forward to seeing you again. All the best. Thank you.